Human beings are hardwired to be afraid of the dark. For hundreds of thousands of years, pitch-black environments hid predators. If you couldn't see what was causing a sudden movement in the shadows, your survival instinct told you to assume the worst. This biological blind spot fueled the cultural obsession with 1980s horror cinema. Documentaries charting the era, like In Search of Darkness, highlight how intensely audiences engaged with the unknown. For legendary directors like John Carpenter, heavy shadow was a practical necessity. The rubber suits and animatronics of the time required darkness to hide their artificial seams, which would have been obvious under studio lights. Film stock of the era struggled to capture detail in low light, creating a psychological engine for suspense. The technical inability to expose an image forced the audience's imagination to fill in the terrifying blanks. Researcher Gaurav Tiwari applied this same interest in the dark to the paranormal. He treated investigation as a rigorous science, prioritizing physical evidence over the typical scares found in local folklore. But documenting the unseen presents a physical paradox. Traditional cameras require light to expose an image, yet the subjects of these investigations supposedly exist in the blackest, most unlit corners of the world. Flooding a haunted room or a movie set with artificial light solves the exposure problem, but it instantly strips away the very atmosphere of suspense required for the story. For decades, documentary crews and horror directors shared a specific hurdle. They needed a way to record clear data in pitch-black spaces without destroying the dread of the environment. The solution to that low-light paradox arrived through specific optical engineering in the Sony Cine series. These sensors process light sensitivity using a mechanism that differs from traditional cameras. This diagram illustrates a feature called dual base ISO. On the left, a traditional camera uses a single base sensitivity. When forced to see in the dark, the electronic signal breaks down into a grainy, unusable image. On the right, the dual base ISO system uses two entirely separate electronic circuits to process the light. When lighting drops, the camera physically switches to that second circuit. By operating at massive native sensitivities like ISO 2500 or even 12,800, the sensor reads a pitch-black environment clearly without adding digital noise. Because the sensor itself manages the sensitivity, crews no longer require massive artificial lighting rigs to film in the woods or a haunted basement. Cinematographers immediately applied this. Directors of photography like James Kniest used this sensitivity to create deep, moody aesthetics on horror series like The Midnight Club. Removing heavy lighting equipment means the crew occupies less space. They can now place lenses in tight closets, crawl spaces, and narrow hallways that were previously impossible to access. The cameras also became physically smaller. The Rialto extension system allows crews to detach the sensor block from the main camera body, creating a tiny profile for shooting from extreme tight angles. These detached sensors can be flown on drones or used at high frame rates, allowing for fluid, rapid movement through dark environments. This mobility changes the spatial geometry of a thriller. Instead of observing fear from a distance, the audience is trapped in the claustrophobic space right next to the characters. Modern filmmakers and paranormal researchers are no longer restricted by the technical limitations of underexposure. This brings up a philosophical question. If the mechanics of the 1980s proved that we fear what we can't see, does exposing every corner of the room make the dark less scary? Gaurav Tiwari noted that gaining knowledge about the unseen does not cancel fear. Sometimes knowing exactly what is in the room with you creates it. Cinematographers now use high dynamic range capabilities to explicitly reveal the terrifying textures and details lurking in the blackness. Instead of a vague shadow, the audience sees exactly what is there. Mastering low light technology hasn't removed the mystery of the dark.